Welcome to Planting Pinellas, the podcast that digs deep into the heart of gardening in Pinellas County, presented by Master Gardener volunteers of the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. I'm Charlotte Vaughn.
I'm Alan Shapiro. Whether you're a local looking to connect with your community or a visitor curious about your area's culture, conservation, and all things green, this is the place for you.
Join us as we explore the people, places, projects, and of course plants that make Pinellas a thriving hub of sustainability, innovation, and natural beauty. From gardening tips to environmental initiatives, we've got the roots of Pinellas covered. So grab your gardening gloves and let's get started.
Irrigation is very much the biggest waster of water when it comes to outdoor irrigation. However, you've got to look at, and this is why I was also looking at, how can we educate the rest of the public like you?
Yeah.
You can save water outdoors. I mean, if you have a yard and you just stand there with your hose without a shutoff nozzle, I mean, you can waste water. Right. Microirrigation. I just have it on all the time. Does that save water? Is that
No.
a good use of water? No. They are watering 24/7. Just let the thing run. It just trickles a little.
I
Doesn't matter.
I just leave my sink on all the time in case I need to wash my hands a couple times a day.
Same thinking, exactly.
That's a good point.
In case I come back in 10 minutes, I have to wash my hands again. Just let it run.
Yeah, I think that's a different mindset that somebody has in their house with their water. They're very conscious of it, but they don't think about that, especially if they have a well. They don't think about irrigating or watering their lawn or watering their plants. It's really interesting and really bizarre in some ways. Now, I'm not wasting water there, but I'm wasting water in my house when everything's running.
Thinking
Yeah.
is really to wake up or initiate that click. Water is everywhere in use. Water is life, and it does not matter where you use it. You got to conserve it and be careful with it. If it's the brushing the teeth, the full loads of washing machines, the indoor stuff, all of that. But when we talk about outdoors, assuming you have an irrigation system, that's the number one wasteful, or can be the most wasteful part in your water use.
Hello, welcome back to Planting Pinellas. We are covering the Florida-friendly landscaping principle number 2 today, which is watering efficiently. And we have a special guest on the show today. Doris Heitzman is the Florida-friendly landscaping program manager for our IVAS extension in Pinellas County. Welcome, Doris.
Thank you.
Very glad to have you in today. So talking about watering efficiency, there's a lot that goes into that. We were chatting a little bit before we got started here just about the basic concept of what does it even mean to water efficiently?
It really means to understand that water is a limited resource that we have to use as wisely as possible. No matter what you do inside and outside your house, or you're in the landscape, outside the landscape, doesn't matter. You need to really think about it's a resource that is limited. It's precious, it's limited, and we rely on water.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting to note the difference between water efficiency and water conservation, because those are a little bit of a different thought. That conservation is the idea of just don't use it. But efficiency is more a focus on using it appropriately. And I think that's the balance that we want to try to find here, is understanding that plants need water. Water is life. You said that. And to get that life into the plant, we live in Pinellas County. We're surrounded by water. We have a lot of rainfall. But is that enough? And how do we know when it's enough? And how do we monitor what we're trying to accomplish with irrigating our landscape, with just maintaining our plants?
That's a very broad question, Charlotte. It's a lot of things come into how to understand water and water conservation and water efficiency. I think you need to understand where we are, the climate we have here, the soils, the temperatures. Everything comes into play as of what do I have in my yard, in my landscape, and how do I maintain it? How do I water it? If you go to the very extreme, talking about water conservation, you could install a landscape that you get established. You pick the right plants that are for the right location, that are happy with what they find as of soil and so forth, and the sunlight and all that. And then you get them established, and then you wean them off. You only water as needed, or to the next extreme, you only let rainfall, let the
Right.
plants being watered by rainfall. So this is the extreme, and many homeowners would be afraid of going to that extreme. I think it's doable. It's just you have to be able to sacrifice some plants, because some plants will probably not survive. If you have an extreme drought, a very long drought, some plants might not survive or will look really ugly or unsightly in the meantime. So speaking of efficiently, yes, you can water your plants. And I would say I belong to that group of homeowners. I want to maintain and sustain my landscape. But I push the limits. I wait until I see, okay, it's getting really, really rough for these plants. And there are indicators where you can see when the plant goes really, really thirsty and starts to suffer and goes belly up, so to speak. Before it goes to that really to this extreme, then you water.
Knowing how to see those markers for what they are, because some of the physical symptoms in a plant can be similar in underwatering as well as in overwatering, but they're not necessarily, if you've been adding a lot of water to your plant and it starts to wilt, that it's probably not underwatering at that point. But some people would continue to water just because they think it's so hot that it's still just that thirsty. Something that you hinted at there is letting your plants experience a little bit of stress and letting them get to the point where they're showing that stress in a way actually helps toughen them up. And that's true with grass as well as with some ornamental plants, right?
Right. And I also want to mention that if you see a plant going droopy in the evening, so I was watching my own plants in front of my house, which I have a gap there. I have no irrigation in one area. And I said to my husband, these plants really need water. This morning I looked and they were perked up again. So you got to look at your plants in the morning. So if the plant is still droopy in the morning, then it needs water. That's a really good indicator.
Very good tip.
Yes, because some plants go into a heat stall, we call it. What they do is to protect themselves from that heat or from that sun, they just go limp. The leaves drop and they just protect themselves, so to speak.
I can relate.
Yeah, me too.
But then again, I think when people see that, they freak out.
They panic.
They panic, and then they think that they have to go and water the plant. And it may be in the middle of the day when that doesn't seem to make any sense to water in the middle of the day. Does that make plant better or stronger in the sense?
What you do, it applies to turf, to grass, as well as plants. If you push the limits, you encourage the plant, so to speak, or the grass, developing a deeper root system.
Right.
If you water because the plant doesn't look like you want it to look like, and you go, oh my goodness, it's going to die, it's going to go bad, whatever, you got to wait and push the limits. And as I said, there are indicators, the one I just mentioned. There's another good one. If you have turf that you think, oh gosh, it's not doing well, it's really going brown on me, it's going to die, there are indicators you can push that limit to. So let's say the grass blades fold in half. That's one good indication that the
Right.
grass needs water. Or the St. Augustine turns into this bluish, grayish color. That's an indicator.
I've heard that if you walk across the grass and the footprints remain for longer than you would expect, that's a sign.
That's
that
another one. Yes,
they're dry.
correct. Now, we are under restrictions. Now, you observe that on a Tuesday and your watering day is on Saturday. What do? We have no choice. We can hand water with a nozzle, but that makes no sense, especially if it's a larger area. So here again, push the limits.
Yeah, so you're actually helping the plant to build up that tolerance to kind of wait it out then.
Correct.
So if I can just take a step back a little bit and talk about the principle itself, because I'm curious, what is principle 2? What does it mean? What is it, and how does somebody understand it?
I would say in a nutshell, it really is understanding that water is a limited resource and that we need to use it as needed and not overuse it or use it when we think the landscape needs it. We should really learn a bit better what our landscape needs and observe. So observation, education, and thinking about water being a limited resource that we need to protect.
And we're not just talking about potable water there. We're talking about all forms and all sources of water. That could be reclaimed, it could be well water, it doesn't really matter.
Correct. All of these sources that you just mentioned, Charlotte, are part of the 1% usable, readily available, so to speak, water to us. So it does not matter, as you said, what source you're using. You don't pay for well water. the water itself. You don't pay directly for lake water that you pump out of a pond or lake. You don't pay as much, at least at the moment, for reclaimed water. It doesn't matter. It's about the water itself is the resource. It doesn't matter where it's coming from.
Yeah, and in a sense, you kind of are paying for it because the rates are going to get higher if the aquifers are not readily available. Eventually, it'll catch up with us. And in such a densely populated county that we are, that overuse of water, even though we feel like we're just surrounded by water, that it's not all usable. We can't water our lawns with the Gulf water because the salt is going to kill the plants. We saw that from the stormwater inundation where rows and rows of plants died because they were standing in salt water. And that has a process that it can be desalinated, and yet there's a cost to that. So anything that we're doing that is wasting that little scrap of the resource that is readily available to us means that we have to use a harder way. So there is a cost. Whatever kind of source you're getting your water, there's still ultimately a cost involved, even if you don't see it come out of your bank account, right?
Right, and I think that has to do, getting back to watering efficiently. What we can do in our home landscapes is tremendous. We can make a tremendous difference if we understand that water can be used and needs to be used to establish a landscape and maybe also to keep it going. But how we use it, when we use it, how much we use it, that we are aware of. Only use what you need.
Well, and there are some basic standards for that as well, that there's a regional organization that we call it SwiftMud. Remind me what that stands for.
SwiftMud stands for Southwest Florida Water Management District. This is one of the 5 districts we have, water districts we have in the state of Florida. And what they do is they regulate our water, and they also observe and control and check water quality. So that's their role. And they look at the water tables, they look at the groundwater. And just as a side note, drinking water comes from the ground. So they observe the water tables and what it does and how it looks like. And then they will determine how often we can use irrigation water, how often we can irrigate. This is trickled down or passed on to the member governments. And then they, like the counties and the cities, they can determine if they want to have tougher restrictions even. But they have to adhere to the SwiftMud, to the district's regulations.
The minimum requirement.
The minimum requirements, correct.
So SwiftMud covers, I think you said 16 counties. And then Pinellas, as one of those counties, has the option to have a more strict requirement. And then each municipality or district within Pinellas can further kind of control the amount of water that we can use or the timing and different things of that nature. It gets a little confusing because you cross the street and you might be in a different municipality, city limits versus unincorporated. So there's actually a really good web resource on the SwiftMud website where you can find out by your address what the requirements are of when you're allowed to water, whether it's potable water or well or lake or reclaimed, any of those, that if they have specific regulations for each type, you can find that online, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we'll definitely put that website in the show notes. But then as far as like the best practices, I mean, that's kind of a minimum standard that you have to know, what is the ordinance? What am I required to adhere to? And from there, what would we consider maybe a best practice? What would be your top tips for water efficiently in the landscape?
First of all, if you do have an irrigation system or a sprinkler system, you definitely want to learn a little bit about it. Very often, it's the big unknown when I talk with people. It's, I don't know how this works. You got to know your time clock, your settings, how to set it, how to reset it. You want to really do a visual inspection regularly on your irrigation system if the heads are broken, if they are clogged, that they really do their job, that they don't, water the street or create runoff and not really watering your landscape. So this is basics, and it doesn't need to be every week, but at least keep an eye on your irrigation system if you do have one.
I think there was an IFAS guideline I saw that recommended quarterly to at least walk through and just make sure that you don't see any obvious problems about once a quarter, or even if you wanted to hire somebody to come in if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, that's maybe a good ballpark to aim for.
It also depends if you are using it a lot. If you have a lot of traffic or lots of people might drive over your sprinkler heads, if that depends on the location of the sprinkler heads. If you do have let's say, breakages or leaks. And so it depends a little on the situation, but every 3 months quarterly sounds pretty reasonable to me.
One of the things you were talking about was reclaimed water. That is something that we have in our county. Some people have it, some people don't. And I think there's a mindset with reclaimed water that I can use it anytime I want. And it's whenever I want. The first question would be, what is reclaimed water? And then are there restrictions with that?
So reclaimed water is a very, very good resource for using on your landscape, water to use on your landscape. It is a resource that is recycled. It's water from your sewer. It's being recycled, processed, and it's a good resource if you use it, again, wisely, it contains nutrients. You can reduce fertilization. And on a side note, there's a really great app that I'd like to recommend to look at. If you use reclaimed water in the context of fertilization reduction, this would be a good one to look at because it gives you exactly, if you put in your zip code, it gives you the number of fertilizations that you need using from the city of St. Pete, from the county, from the city of Largo, depending on the composition of the reclaimed water, how often you need to fertilize or how little you need to fertilize. So I really like this app a lot. I'd recommend it.
I'll put a link to that in the notes as well.
Yeah, that would be great. So people can reduce fertilization, save money there. But back to the reclaimed water, I think it's a great water. It's just to use on the landscape. It's not for everyone. I would not like to use it on something that is salt intolerant. Salt intolerant plants don't care for that because it contains salt, the reclaimed water. The saltiest, I think, in the county is St. Petersburg's water, reclaimed water. So depending on what you do, what you have in your landscape, you might not like it or it might not be good for your landscape. But overall, instead of using potable water, offsetting that with reclaimed, it's good. But again, using it wisely. Don't use too much of it. Use only what you need. The downside of reclaimed could be that you build up salt. So when I had the people calling me, homeowners in our communities calling me of what do I do with my landscape that was flooded or even salt sprayed only, but something happened. I had standing salt water, I had flood, whatever. You should flush out your landscape with fresh water. I said, I only have reclaimed water. Well, that doesn't do the job as great because it contains salt as well. So there are downsides to the reclaimed as well. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Well, and just the accessibility of it, because not all areas or neighborhoods have it. I know that I see the infrastructure for it because I see the purple water lines near my home, and yet it's not available to me in my home landscape. So that's obviously a limitation of it, of whether it's available to an individual or not, but just the general use of it. I want to ask you what you think about automatic timers for lawn irrigation.
I think it's a great invention. It's just something that people tend to set it and forget it, we call it.
Right.
It's there, it's somewhere. Sometimes they don't even know where it's at. It's interesting. Sometimes it's just buried. So if I ask, can I see your time clock? Oh, I think I have to remove the tires first and the shelf that my husband put in front of it. But yes, it's somewhere in that corner. So the awareness that something like a time clock is like anything in your household that you have, you need to maintain it and be aware of it and look at it and make changes to it and make sure it's working and all that. So overall, it's a help, but it's kind of, how should I put this? A little danger there that people don't forget it. They don't want to really deal with it.
It's out of sight, out of mind.
That's a good one, yes, out of sight, out of mind. And that is something that I bring people's attention to when I go and schedule a site visit. I ask a number of questions of what is your irrigation system doing? What brand do you have? The time clock, what's the brand, the model number? So at least they need to look at it before I come and they know where it's at. Because it happened to me before that, we don't know. We have no idea what that thing is and where it's at and if you have one. So yes, raising awareness that you have a device like this and you need to take care of it, like anything in your household and around your household that you look at and take care of.
Let me ask you about microirrigation. So we're talking about water efficiency. Is microirrigation better? Is it something that you could set and then again forget and go ahead and water as much as you want? Or is it again something that we need to be conscious of in when we set it up and how we set it up and how much water we use?
It is a really good way to irrigate or water efficiently if it's used correctly. You cannot do that much wrong with it. It's just if it's abused or overused, it's not efficient anymore. Or if it's improperly installed and you do have leaks, or especially the overuse. If you start not even paying attention to the run time, you just turn it on and let it run for good, that's not efficient. That's wasting water, and for no reason, because plants don't need 24/7 watering. It's just not necessary.
It's like leaving your sink on in case you go to wash your hands later. It
Right.
doesn't make sense.
Exactly. So same thing. You got to take care of it, and you need to make sure that the little emitters are not clogged, and that it's functioning, and that the critters didn't chew on your drip line, that you don't have leaks and holes in your supply line and all that. But overall, yes, it's a very efficient way to irrigate landscape plants. That being said, it cannot be used on turf grass.
That's a good point.
But here, the sandy soils, you don't have a lateral movement with sandy soils. The water basically goes down and disappears, so to speak. But for anything else besides turf or grass, yes, it's an excellent way to get the water to the root system of the plant. It's very efficient, it's very effective, also for plant establishment if you do it right.
So back to the irrigation timer question, there's some basic guidelines for how to use that, including state laws that require sensors for rain. What would you suggest as the options for the rainwater sensors compared to maybe a smart timer?
Okay, so since 2009, it's a state law that you do need to have a device that overrides your irrigation system in case of a rain event and your landscape received enough water. You can set this threshold, and we recommend, the University of Florida, IFAS recommends 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of water per irrigation cycle that you make available to your plants. So what you can do is you can get different devices that can help you with sensing if there's enough water that your plants are happy. It could be a rain sensor, which is the most common way or most common device that you can use. They are wireless, they're hardwired ones. You can have a rain sensor that will be installed at a point where it's exposed to the rain without obstruction from a tree or a wall or anything like that. So it can catch the rain and it can sense when you have your, let's say, 3/4 of an inch, and then it will turn off your irrigation. Or if it had rained the day before your irrigation comes on, it will not even let you start because it's still sufficient that you had the 3/4 of an inch the day before, so it doesn't need to come on. So the device is, don't want to go into details here, but the settings are crucial that you know, I want to have 1/2 an inch per irrigation cycle or 3/4 of an inch per irrigation cycle and set it like this. Then you have to test that, of course. You cannot always expect the device to be functioning like anything, like I said before. You've got to test that. That would be part of the quarterly test system, not irrigation system, that the rain sensor is working. Very easy. I'm not getting into details. You find great information from your IFAS how to test your rain sensor as well. The next better step would be a soil moisture sensor that would measure the moisture in the soil, communicates to the time clock, to the valves, and then it will turn off the system if there is sufficient moisture in the soil. Then there are, of course, smart controllers that will take into consideration, if it's really including everything, it's the rain. So it's the forecast, it's the soil moisture, if you have that included. So it would take into consideration all kinds of aspects to communicate to your irrigation system. We don't need to come on today because we are expecting rain sufficiently that we don't have to irrigate on top of that.
And I love that. That's what I have in my home, where I've got a minimum threshold that if there's, I want to say it's something like a 40% chance that we're going to get rain in the next couple of days, that mine will automatically skip that cycle before it happens, because my timer is set to run at 4 a.m. And if it's going to run and then rain the next day, or that same day in the afternoon, then I'm still wasting water. But having that option to kind of look at the weather forecast, and it's Wi-Fi based and all of that in my mind, I feel like that maybe that's helping save water even more, because it's predicting rain that would come later and making sure that the irrigation cycle doesn't run on top of that, whereas the rain sensor waits until after the rain already happens and shuts off the next cycle.
Right. I really think there is this little hurdle, it might be the generational hurdle, the fear of technology.
Probably.
That's fair.
Yeah, so younger people are all into having the app on the phone and are traveling around the world and they can see what the irrigation system is doing or turning it off. Or it's just, I think it's very cool. But I think there's still a fear of that. This not directly managing and handling a device that's not for everybody. But I think it will come more and more because how much better can it get?
Yeah.
That you could take everything into consideration before you turn the water on.
And I think most homeowners, at least I believe most homeowners would want to be efficient with their watering. But a lot of what you're talking about, and just want to make sure we get to resources that they have, because you're talking about that they have to watch this, but I believe a lot of homeowners, really rely on their landscaper or whoever they're hiring, and for them to actually intervene, be involved with it is not something that I think that they really think about too much. And so are there resources available for homeowners to make sure that they are watering efficiently?
I can always refer to your FIFAS extension. So there's the extension office itself that you can locally visit online or walk in or call and get information. Then there's, of course, the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program. You find us on the website and contact us directly. You can go online, find information online. And I know this is, for many, it's tedious and they think, gosh, I have to find my way. But if you it's really, really simple. You put a keyword, efficient irrigation, in the search engine and you put IFIS behind your search word. That takes you straight to a website or to a blog or to any information that IFAS has posted in the past.
And that's IFAS, right?
IFAS, Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences.
Yeah, I love using that.
And this is something I think that Charlotte and I talked about in our previous episodes, and I think it's important, and that is watering efficiently, making sure your system is working efficiently, doing the right plant at the right place, fertilizing. Those were the three principles we've gone through. It'll make your life and your gardening fun, because you're not going to be in there all the time figuring out this and that and the other thing. Once you get everything done and do your research up front, you're going to have fun. And that's what I think is the bottom line here, is we want people and homeowners to have fun in landscaping, in gardening, in our community. And if they follow these principles, if they do these things, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. People want to have fun, but some of them, they want to have it easy. But
point.
to get to the easy, you need to do a little bit of work ahead of time.
Sure.
Yes, sure.
The work can be fun. So I learned a lot during my time as a master gardener volunteer. And when I had my own landscape design business, I studied plants, what they do, what they need. You learn, and I learn every day. And that is the fun part, that you really learn a lot about the environment, about the plants, about your own landscape situation, and also your limits. And there are limits. I totally agree. I admit that you have limits. Is it physically? Is it financially? I mean, you have to do what you can do. But the more information you have, the better you can make decisions, where to go, how much to do, and all that. And once you have that resource and you find out more and more people are in the same boat, you can take classes, you can go online, you can go to podcasts like this, there's so much information out there, and not everything is for everybody, I get that. But if you want to learn, you can really tap into your FIFAS information. As I said, online, in person, we teach classes. There's so much out there.
And a lot of it's free.
And exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of what we're trying to accomplish on this podcast is helping everybody find their comfort level, because some people want the golf course lawn where they're fertilizing and they're irrigating and all of these things. But where do you find the balance in those and say, I'm comfortable with maybe reducing my lawn a little bit, but I still want my lawn to stay green year round? Or I'm comfortable with finding a ground cover alternative or something else. And everybody has their tolerance level. And I would say even on your aspect as the communities that you work with in the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, that communities have a tolerance level, that they have those requirements where they want a kind of a standardized look within that area. And working within those parameters, you can still accomplish these Florida Friendly principles and maybe more or less in some settings, but everybody can do something. And it's amazing how much it adds up. And I want to just throw in, because I'm the geek that loves statistics, that I looked up that it takes 0.62337 gallons of water to cover 1 square foot with 1 inch of water. Using that number to calculate an average lot size and how much of that lot would be plants, whether it's turf or other plants, that they came up with an estimate that applying a half inch of water to the turf would take 991 gallons of water per cycle. And again, going a little bit into the geek realm with those statistics. I know, it's too fun.
You're really going deep.
So how much water is that really? If you think about a water bottle that you buy, it's usually about 16 point something ounces. 7,501.87 of those bottles per irrigation cycle. That's like 3 to 4 pallets of water bottles that you're using in a single irrigation cycle just to get a half inch of water on your lawn. That's a ton of water. That's more than most people use in their house every day that you're dumping on the ground, literally. Now, is it benefiting your plants? Some of it. So if you can reduce that just a little bit, skip 1 cycle, skip 2 cycles, just whatever you can do to toughen up your yard so that it's not needing as much supplemental irrigation, and using your timers effectively, just turn off your automatic sprinkler unless the plant tells you that it needs the water. Those are things that everybody can do without losing that minimum threshold standard that they want their appearance to be. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. We could go all out, but even just a little bit can help.
To your point, Charlotte, what I really find most interesting and also most challenging is reaching people that are used to specific landscapes and behaviors, and including water use. How do we reach them to explain to them that there are solutions, there are other ways to do things, and at the same time protect our environment and our precious water resources? How do we make people to realize we cannot do things like we did 30, 40 years ago? I look at many old landscapes. I see many opportunities to revamp, to re-landscape, especially after the storms when the landscapes were damaged or some of them even destroyed. So how can we interest people into the topic of what we do in our landscapes, no matter how big, has consequences? You gotta really go by the times, and the times have changed. We need water to be accepted as something that's a limit. We don't have a limitless resource. We need to conserve.
It's really a mindset shift.
Yes, correct. It needs to be understood by everybody that your behavior is crucial to protecting the resource for now and future generations.
I think that's just nailed it on the head of the exact point we're trying to make with this episode. So I have a question. What could somebody do if they wanted to just go all out or all in with water conservation? What would you suggest to them?
I would say try to get an award. Get the Florida Friendly Yard. Yes, get the Florida Friendly Yard recognition first. This is something we do.
What's that?
Offer. And that's a program that the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program offers, that contact us and Florida Yard Recognition, and we come to your site and we go by the 9 principles, the point system. If you achieved all of them or some of them, and you either get the silver or the gold recognition.
So that's contacting the extension office.
Yes. Then there's another wonderful award that I like to present and to talk about, and that's the Tampa Bay Community Waterwise Awards. This program is put on by Tampa Bay Water, our wholesale water supplier of the region. And we give this award out once a year. You go and enter on the website. You put in the information we are asking for. Then we schedule a site visit with you. And then again, it's a point system. And the winner receives a beautiful stepping stone for the yard. And that program is going on since the 90s. It's very popular, and it's for homeowners as well as businesses and also communities that have parks that can be recognized as water-wise.
How many people can win that in Pinellas County?
In Pinellas County, the city of St. Petersburg, we separate that out, can win, and the Pinellas County can win. It's a tri-county effort, a tri-county awards program. So it's Hillsborough County, Pasco, and Pinellas County, and the cities of Tampa, Newport Richey, and St. Petersburg.
That's really cool. I want to thank you so much for coming and for sharing your experience and your perspective with us. And I'm hoping that this podcast gives a platform to really get that message across to people and just to stop and think, what I do matters and what my neighbor does matters. And if we can change that perspective and really start to shift that mindset to protecting these resources and still maintaining a better concept of what a Florida-friendly landscape really is, that can make all the difference. So we always wrap up our episodes with a little bit that we call Ready, Set, Grow. And it's talking about what we can do in the month of June. This is our June podcast episode. And so things that we can do to kind of get our landscape ready for the upcoming part of our season could be solarizing the soil. And there's a whole lot that could get into that, but the summer heat is a good time that we can try to eliminate undesirable plants, whether that's turf grass or something else. I'm really not going to go into it, but I will put some links on there. If it's something that you want to dive into, you can contact the Extension office or look at some of these resources I'm going to share. And another thing is just safety. Being out in the garden, it's hot. It's already hot. So being aware of the heat, of wearing sun protection, keeping water handy when you're out there. We are starting to get those afternoon pop-up storms. Lightning is possible, even if it's not raining right where you are. So just being aware. We already talked about checking your irrigation and making sure that you don't have leaks in your system, making sure that it is calibrated properly, and that if your yard is prone to flooding or you just want to be extra prepared for the rainy season, that you've got something in place that will help you with managing that stormwater.
And so some of the things to set at this point, we just went through a whole episode of following water restrictions. Very important, especially even during the rainy season. And of course, June 1, it's here, and no fertilizing. Stop fertilizing. You can't buy it anymore. It's been banned. And I would encourage everybody to go back and listen to our last episode, which was all about fertilizing and the part of it on fertilizing banning. Monitor your landscape. Look at your gardening weekly for harmful insects. And it doesn't mean if you see an insect, go and spray and kill everything that's on.
Most insects are not harmful.
Most insects are not harmful. And again, we will be getting way into that episode. And then you certainly want to start pruning trees, palms, and shrubs at this time of year. I think those things are going to help you to get you set for moving forward through the summer season.
Absolutely. And then what to grow. We've got lots of flowers that can handle the full sun. We've got things like portulaca and pentas, some kinds of vinca. There's a few that are not recommended invasives, but I'm just making sure that you've got some that are Florida friendly appropriate. Even coleus, if you didn't plant it last month, you can still get some of those in. And palm trees. It's a great time to plant things like that because as our rainy season starts up, the earth is going to be providing the establishing water that plant needs, and you're not going to have to do as much supplemental water. And then there's also some herbs and vegetables that you can still get in the ground in the summertime, and things that are heat loving. So basil, ginger, cilantro, garlic chives, which is a specific kind of chive that actually thrives really well, and they taste amazing. I've been using them in my garden. Cuban oregano, turmeric, Mexican tarragon, lemongrass, rosemary. There's loads of heat-loving herbs that you can keep growing year-round. Some of them are even perennial. And then tropical vegetables, things you might not have considered, pigeon peas, calabaza squash, chayote squash, even the Malabar spinach and some of those other things that are tropical, that they thrive in the heat. And just get out there and start planting.
Enjoy, everyone. Thank you for listening.
And thanks again so much for Doris joining us today, and we hope to have you again sometime soon.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thanks for tuning into Planting Pinellas. We hope you're feeling inspired to get involved, learn more, and grow alongside this incredible community.
Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you like the show, leave us 5 stars or a review. And don't forget to share with fellow plant lovers. Until next time, keep planting, keep growing, and keep making Pinellas County a place to thrive.
This podcast is brought to you by the University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences Extension in Pinellas County, Florida, an equal opportunity institution.